Was CM Punk pulled from the AEW Collision announcement last minute? We'll talk about it. Plus, an absent AEW star makes a big Dynamite comeback, and a gimmick match is returning for AEW Double or Nothing. It's all in the wrestling news right now. AEW Collision was officially announced yesterday, but where was CM Punk?
Oh,
Hello, Reggie. What's the latest on this situation? Because there's a bit more to it than meets the eye.
There certainly is. So this comes from Fightful Select, who say, for the past couple of months, AEW and CM Punk have been working towards a return for Punk on their AEW Collision brand. This is extended all the way to Warner Brothers Discovery, AEW and TNT having promotional materials made for the show involving Punk, including a Samoa Joe match graphic.
It had been reported that Punk and Joe was possibly an early match on Collision.
Yep.
That was hence why Joe, a Ring of Honor star, was so strongly included in the Collision promotions. Fightful has learned that during the meeting between CM Punk and Chris Jericho that was held recently, Jericho mentioned the possibility of Ace Steel returning to the company in some capacity, with the belief that people working together in harmony could alleviate some tensions and show that everyone was willing to do business.
Yes, Fightful was told that there was a meeting this week between AEW and Punk, and it was extended to Punk that Steel would have the ability to be with the company and work directly with Punk. However, it was made clear that Ace Steel would not be able to be at AEW television. We haven't learned specifically how Punk reacted to this, outside of him not being in agreement with it. There were plans for an AEW camera crew to film materials at CM Punk's home on Wednesday, but we've not been told if that actually happened.
Now, this is a story that's corroborated by numerous sources, including PW Insider. They say the belief among those we've spoken to is that Ace Steel was expected to return in conjunction with Punk next month, working behind the scenes. The story making the way around AEW backstage today or yesterday at Dynamite is the decision was made that Steel wouldn't be at the actual Collision tapings backstage. Now, as you might imagine, says Mike Johnson of PW Insider, that left Punk and AEW on opposite sides of the discussion, which in turn led to Punk being removed from all promotional material released for the Collision series yesterday. And an interesting little tidbit on, because sometimes these things can get blown out of proportion. Something in the ether of the internet suggests that CM Punk was indeed set to be announced yesterday.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Jimmy Traynor from Sports Illustrated spotted something. So in the cached listing for Warner Brothers Discovery's upfronts, CM Punk is indeed named in the press release. He was removed and it was replaced with a more generic Collision headline. So the first one, it said, TNT launches a second night of wrestling with AEW Collision featuring headliners CM Punk, Thunder Rosa, Miro, Samoa Joe, and Powerhouse Hobbs on Saturday, June 17th. However, the one that was then changed just simply says TNT launches a second night of wrestling with AEW Collision.
But there's his name. There's the big lad.
His name was right there, highlighted right there.
Now, it's believed by somebody close to PW Insider that CM Punk was indeed meant to be on the poster that was launched yesterday as well. However, he was replaced by MJF. I don't know whether we're going too deep on that one, because obviously a lot of AEW champions are featured on that poster.
Yeah.
Whether or not other faces were removed and stuff, obviously you would imagine that someone like CM Punk would be prominently featured.
Absolutely.
But apparently he was, according to one source, was placed by MJF. PW Insider have also said, along with Fightful, that Impact had shown interest in bringing Ace Steel in for a tryout when, however, the invitation was passed along. They were made to believe that he was either returning to AEW or going to WWE. So it suggests that there is a conversation about him coming back, but maybe not in the capacity that Punk was hoping. With all of this going on all around, CM Punk booted up his Instagram app and hopped in the stories once more.
He sure did. We love it when he does this. CM Punk has made some comments on Instagram yesterday. First, there was some choice words for Brian Alvarez, who reported that Punk was initially factored into the Collision announcement and has been removed at the last minute. Punk said, "Look everyone, Brian Alvarez doesn't like it when misinformed internet trolls make up rumours about him, so please stop making rumours and stories for clicks while Brian makes up rumours and stories for clicks, okay? He's married, for God's sake. By God, that man has a family." Brian Alvarez, shut the flip up and stop talking about me, challenge day one. That was the first thing that Punk wrote, and then he followed it up again with a screenshot. He posted a screenshot of what appeared to be an email from Brian Alvarez to an unknown recipient, in which Alvarez stated that he does not and has never had an issue with CM Punk. Now, David Bixenspan has stated the email in question is actually from 2009 or 2010. This was then followed up with a general comment from Punk. Friendly reminder, I haven't been on TV in 9 months and y'all can't stop talking about me. Maybe stop, you'll feel better. Love, hate, it's all the same. I don't enjoy being the sole person that props up the entire misinformed clickbait industry based on toxic gossip from lying sources. But what can you do?
Oof. Shots fired.
Shots fired in all
Etc.
directions.
Now, Collision has announced a whole bunch of dates. They are taking the show on Saturday nights across to Canada for the first part, or for the latter part of June. They're going to be in Toronto, in Ontario, Canada, for the last 2 Saturdays in June. They'll be in Saskatchewan and Alberta for the first 2 weeks in July, and then they're back in the US for the show in Newark, New Jersey on July 22nd. However, there's a glaring omission, which is June 17th, which just says to be announced. Now, it was reported recently that was a show that AEW were running in Chicago.
Yes.
Which is obviously the home of Chancery Montgomery Punk. And this, though, leave that to your imagination as to whether or not they might want to make a big. They're hoping they'll sort of find the sides with this again and make a big announcement about it.
Yeah, you would think so. That's what I think may happen. I hope they do come to terms with something and do it. I think it's a smart decision just in case things don't, nothing is sort of come to agreement on between the two parties at least anyway.
Meanwhile, last night, away from CM Punk stuff and Collision stuff, which we will keep you abreast of, he said abreast, at cultaholic.com. Last night on Dynamite, big return, big match announced. What do we got, Andrew?
Big return with Snake Plissken from Escape from New York. He looks exactly like Snake Plissken. It's insane.
Doesn't it?
I was like, who does that look like? Snake Plissken. So yeah, Dynamite went off there last night, and Hangman Adam Page has returned to AEW TV with an eye patch. My God, is that man handsome. He helped the Elite take out the Blackpool Combat Club, and then Page closed out Dynamite by issuing the challenge for AEW Double or Nothing. The Elite, he said it, the Elite, they're back together versus the Blackpool Combat Club. Anarchy at the Arena. So the last Anarchy in the Arena match took place Double or Nothing 2022, and I remember it was Blackpool Combat Club and Jericho Appreciation Society, Sting doing all mad stuff. It was fantastic. I love that. It was great. The match is Spiritual Soul. I think I got that wrong.
Spiritual.
No, I don't think.
It wasn't Sting.
Sting wasn't in that, was he?
No.
What am I thinking of?
You might be thinking of Stadium Stampede.
Yes, I am.
Because to be fair, the Anarchy at the Arena is the spiritual successor to Stadium Stampede.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like the same,
wrong,
but just
everyone.
like, you know how Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday are different, but the same?
Yeah.
I did compare it to Taboo Tuesday and Cyber Sunday. Did I, sir?
I guess.
It's the same. I think the last one we had Eddie Kingston just bathed in blood, walking down to the ring with a petrol can.
Of course it was. I apologise, I got that wrong. All I can think of is Sting just jumping off stuff.
But Sting loves jumping off stuff.
He does love jumping off stuff these days, doesn't he?
Jumping off
I
stuff.
apologise, wrestling community.
Do you know what? Even if Sting wasn't in a Stadium Stampede, let's all just take a moment to think about Sting jumping off stuff.
Yes, go on.
Because it's a good time
He's a good
had
lad.
by all. That'll be fun.
That'll be
a good
great.
match.
Really, really good. Good to see the Elite back together as well. It's going to be a banger of a match.
It'll be an excellent time. We're going to end with some sad news from the wrestling world as we lost a WWE Hall of Famer, superstar Billy Graham, one of the most charismatic sports entertainers, professional wrestlers of all time, has passed away at the age of 79. Now, he was in poor health for some time, was recently placed on life support, and a heartbreaking decision was being made whether or not he stays on it or not. And we get the news this morning that he has passed at 79. The story of Eldridge Wayne Coleman from Phoenix, Arizona, born June 7th, 1943, is an incredible one. He was a massive fan of bodybuilding early on. I think in the 5th grade he was lifting, bro.
5th grade.
He was a shot put champion in high school. He won boxing's Golden Gloves in 1959. He was he had a very brief run in the CFL, but bodybuilding was his bag. He was training at Gold's Gym in the 60s with Arnie. There's a great photo of Billy Graham and Arnie.
That's cool.
Training training together, but he got the bug for wrestling when he went to see Stu Hart at Stampede, and he got his first run there, and he took it to the US, where he couldn't really be Eldridge Wayne Coleman. He needed something with a bit more bite to it. So the name was inspired by his friend Dr. Jerry Graham, and a fan of Jesus Christ Superstar, the incredible musical, Superstar Billy Graham is born. He became a tie-dye sensation who cut promos that flowed like water. He inspired an entire, not just one generation, but multiple generations of professional wrestlers. Guys like Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Steve Austin to an extent, Scott Steiner, and of course, Jesse Ventura, who basically sometimes you put the pictures side by side and you go...
And Hulk Hogan as well.
Well, Billy Graham was the man who originally had the Pythons.
Yeah, exactly.
The original owner of the Pythons was Superstar Billy Graham. He won the WWF title in 1975 from Bruno Sammartino. He had his feet on the ropes and everything when he did it. God, they were livid that night. He lost the belt to Bob Backlund. It was a decision that he didn't agree with, but he went along with it. He then went to Japan, where he learned martial arts.
Oh.
And he made a comeback, like completely different. No tie-dye, very little promo, and would just do karate strikes.
Nice.
He destroyed the WWF championship that Bob Backlund held, but was unable to take it for himself in the process. He would end up leaving again. He would tour the NWA. I think he did stuff in CWA as well. And made one other comeback in the WWF, but injuries would start to dog him. He'd have a hip replacement. He'd have numerous problems with his ankles. It led to him leaving, and this led to a fallout between Vince and Superstar Billy Graham, as Vince had promised many years ago that Billy Graham would have a job for life in the WWF, and he was tried out as a manager and as a commentator, and nothing just really seemed to scan, so he was let go. We would hear very vocally Billy Graham talk about the steroid use that he had over 2 decades, even during the Vince McMahon steroid trial of the 90s. He would use his power for good around the 90s, where he would go and speak to collegiate athletes about how to avoid steroid abuse and the perils of using steroids. But then, as has been widely reported, there was one point he was telling Kofi Kingston to maybe try some steroids, which was a strange one. There's been a lot of back and forth between WWE and Billy Graham over the years, but the sides settled things with back in 2004 when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he became a consultant in years later with them. But an incredible story that isn't without controversy, as many of these things are. But I don't know how much Billy Graham... You're only a youngster.
I'm a youngster, but I know that he was such an influential heel and lent so much to sort of, I guess, how heels would develop throughout the years as well. Like, even though he was a heel, he was cheered tremendously. It's such a strange sort of like dichotomy, I guess. Like, for example, like a Rhea Ripley, who's supposed to be this giant heel, but we all cheer for her at the same time. Like, he is so influential in how that role can play out within wrestling.
Absolutely.
And it's a big loss. It's a big loss for wrestling for sure.
He was more than a professional wrestler. Paul Heyman said that before him there were professional wrestlers. He was kind of the first sports entertainer, was Superstar Billy Graham. We remember today, and we send our condolences to the family of the late, the great, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, Superstar Billy Graham. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.